Thank you for joining us. It's Rashad Mills. Of course, I'm the host of the Rashad Mills Show. We are actually off-site. I'm about to go in and interview William Tipper Thomas. An amazing story. You're talking about turning a tragedy into a triumph. You're talking about finding your purpose in life. It's going to be an amazing story. So I suggest you log on to powerofpurposeradio.com and enjoy the show. Welcome to another edition of the Rashad Mills Show, courtesy of powerofpurposeradio.com. And of course, I'm your host, Rashad Mills, and I'd like to personally thank you guys out there for tuning in to the show. And I have a special guest with me this evening, William Tipper Thomas. William, thank you for joining me on the show. How you doing this evening? I'm doing well. William, you just have such an amazing story, and I began to follow you on social media and began to read your whole life situation and to see where you were on that day in May and then where you are now. It's just an amazing story. So for people out there that are watching that are not familiar with you, tell people who you are and what you're currently involved in now, and then we'll kind of get into some of the things that you went through that brought us to this point today.
Okay, well, as you said, my name is William Tipper Thomas. I'm a 29, soon to be in about 2 weeks, 30-year-old.
Old man, okay. Old man status.
I'm fine with that. With things I went through in life, I'm fine with being old man status. Currently, I am a systems engineer for Northrop Grumman Corporation. I have my electrical engineering degree from Morgan State University. I run a nonprofit organization called the Tipper Foundation, which stands for the Traumatic and Patient Parent Provider Emergency Reserve. And essentially, we're a nonprofit human services organization geared towards fundraising monies to help families that are in a state of recovery following a traumatic injury. I'm also part of Trauma Survivors Network. I do a lot of community service and youth advocacy work. Also, I do a lot of work for the mental health department and a lot of advocacy work for people who live with disabilities as well.
Okay, so you're involved in a little bit of everything. Great causes you're involved in. So again, for people that are not familiar with your story, take me back to that day, May 2004, that your life shifted forever.
Okay, well, long story short, May 7, 2004, I was an innocent victim of a shooting at my high school, Rashad High School, that resulted in my paralysis. It happened, like I said, 3 weeks before I graduated high school, about a month before I was to start the process of living my lifelong dream, which was to play football for Morgan State University, like my father did in the 1960s. The nickname Tipper actually comes from, Morgan football. It was my father's nickname originally.
Okay.
His teammates gave it to him as a tease because he used to walk around on his toes, and he was a great corner. And obviously, from my understanding, from my conversation with his former teammates and coaches, and all the way to this day, every homecoming I had this conversation with him, that he's still regarded as the best corner to play in Morgan's history.
Wow!
So as a child, especially when I grew up across the street from Morgan, like literally at Lock Raven and Cold Spring, and leaving at Lock Raven and Ellen, I wanted to return the nickname Tipper back to Morgan football, and just before I was, on the cusp of achieving that dream, it was taken away from me. But I was still fortunate enough to have a great support network, and a great belief in my Lord and Savior. And I was still able to accomplish the more important aspect of going to college, which was to graduate. And I was able to get my electrical engineering degree, and that's what sprung board, my life since then, being an engineer and being active in my community to, one, mainly prevent what happened to me from happening to other young men and women in the States.
Wow, I mean, this is an incredible story. How were you able to, not only from a physical point, but also from a mental point, to take such an event like that happened to you and not say, woe is me, not live in that moment in a negative sense, not let it beat you down, but to take that and just, as you mentioned, springboard yourself into a point now that you're taking something that is so negative and tragic, but it's turning out to be so positive. You're impacting lives literally on a daily basis. How were you able to do that?
Well, it wasn't easy, and as we all know, mental wounds take a lot longer to heal than physical wounds do.
Absolutely.
But when the doctors told me, almost a week later after I was injured, that my chance of walking again would be slim to zero.
What was your initial reaction right then?
Of course, I was upset, I was hurt, I was angry, the spectrum of emotions to be expected. But my grandmother said something to me that I will never forget. She leaned over to me, I was crying, I was carrying on, I was upset, everybody else, I was the one that was upset. And she says, Tipper, let me explain something to you. She says, one, you're still handsome. 2, whether you walking or standing, you can still accomplish whatever you set your mind to. And in that moment when, you know, everything in my life had crashed around me, I had that pillar to stand on. You know, and as I was washing through that storm, through that eye of the storm, you know, I held on to my faith in myself, my faith in my God, my faith in my family. And I was able to come to the realization that, you know, the ultimate goal in going to college is to graduate and not just to play ball. Playing ball in college was a bonus. And mentally, you know, I still went through a lot of challenges, you know, dealing with depression or preventing falling into depression. But that was easy to do because of the amount of support that I had. And that's the same kind of support that we try to afford other families as they're going through their transition from recovery to, from tragedy to recovery through the foundation, is that, you know, you always want to have someone there to let you know that they're pulling for you. So the entire city of Baltimore, you know, sent, you know, cards and prayer baskets and fruit baskets, all these things of this nature to the hospital. And people didn't know me from Adam. People who may have been friends of my family or, you know, just was aware of the situation. They wanted to you know what I'm saying, invest in my well-being. You know, I felt like if I quit, I would have let a lot of people down. You know, and I'm not the most spiritual person there is. I call myself a lukewarm saint at best. But if you pray for me, close your eyes and bend your knee and take me to whoever God you may serve, I understand everybody might not call them what I call them, but if you do that on my behalf, I take that very, very, very seriously. So for me to quit in those moments when things would be tough would be disrespectful to those prayers and someone's religion, to someone, you know, taking the time out of their prayers to pray for me.
Wow.
You know, that's why I do my best to invest back into the city, into the community that invested in me at my lowest point in life. And of course, it took a real serious hit with my spirituality because I was questioning, even though I knew I shouldn't have, but that's just a natural reaction.
Oh, absolutely.
That, you know, why did this happen to me, God? Here I was, you know, a 17-year-old kid who had never been in trouble with the law, who had never been suspended from school, who, you know, had a 3.7 GPA, who worked in college, who worked in high school and was on the football team. I was everywhere I was supposed to be, even the day that it happened. I was at my school. Even though I was trying to catch a ride home and my bus didn't show up, I was still somewhere I should have been, school, which is supposed to be a safe haven.
Absolutely.
Minding my business is waiting for a ride. So I was like wondering, like, God, why did this happen to me? You know.
How long did you question God?
It didn't take. I stopped. I stopped after a while. Once, you know, I started getting my life back together as far as physically and getting healthy again. And I'm really, really blessed that 2.5 years ago, I came to an enlightenment on what this was for. I spoke at I know you do public speaking as well. I spoke at a graduation. I was going through a situation with my job. I'm going to get the whole story. Going through a situation with my job where I felt like I was being slighted for a promotion that I was just to do, right? And a young lady inboxed me on Facebook and she asked me if I'd be willing to come and speak at her high school, her elementary school graduation ceremony. I said no. I'm going through a situation with my job right now. I'm trying to get promoted. Me taking the day off would be the last thing I need right now for me trying to prove my work to get this promotion. So she said, I understand, you know, we'll try back for you next year. Another week goes by and somebody else messages me asking with the same request. Told them the same thing. 2 weeks later, a friend of mine from Morgan, she messaged me with the same request. I said, hold on now. What is God trying to say to you right now? You're so worried about your job, but what is God trying to pull you to right now? He's trying to pull you to your purpose right now. So I took it. I said, you know, I'm gonna take a day off because I don't take vacation. I only take vacation when it's time for me to go speak. So I said, I'm gonna take a day off. I'm gonna go down and I'm gonna speak at Cesar Chavez Middle School's promotion ceremony. And I went and I had about 15 minutes and I did my thing. I told my story and everything I was able to overcome as much as I could in 15 minutes. And as I'm on my way to my car, a car blocks my car rent. Now we're in Southeast DC, Anacostia. And I'm sitting there like, come on, man, like.
That could be a scary
what is
situation.
that?
Right, right.
I've been through this already, like I'm not, and then a young lady gets out the car, and she sort of kind of circles around to let me know I can see her hands and all this. She asked me to roll down my window. She said, young man, I need you to make me a promise. And I said, well, it depends on what the promise is. And she says, I need you to do everything in your power to tell your story to as many people as possible. And she said, I have twin boys, and I'm a single parent. I do my best to take care of my sons and try to steer them the right way. But I've never seen anybody hold their attention the way you held their attention for that long.
When she said that, what did that do to you internally once you heard those words from her?
It blew me away, really. And as I was riding, I said, man, I'm gonna do my best to fulfill this promise to you. And I'm riding back to Baltimore, coming up 295. I'm on a natural high. Like, I don't take pain medicine until this day because of, the history of our city dealing with, strong narcotics. That's the only thing that, alleviates my pain. I'm on a natural high. Like, I'm pain free. Like, endorphins is going. I'm trying to figure out, okay, how can I keep this promise to this young lady? And I was just sitting there in my bedroom that night. I was just sitting there like, is my story really worthy of helping people if she came to me with that request?
Prior to her saying that, did you think your story was worthy?
No, I mean,
why not?
I don't know, because at the time I was still growing, and my sole focus was getting my life back together. So I really didn't have the time to really, meditate on what the purpose of it was. What was I supposed to get out of it? What was I supposed to learn from this situation? I really didn't allow myself the time to do that because I was so busy, trying to get myself healthy again and dealing with, not being prepared for engineering curriculum in high school and having to come up to speed real fast, and still, going through physical therapy and things of that nature. That was my sole focus then. But once all of that was done, and I had graduated and I started working, I had the time to think about what's next. I had told my story for 10 years before I got to that epiphany or enlightenment on what everything that's in my story involves was supposed to be meant for. And once I came to that and I just started thinking about my life and the things that I've gone through and how relatable a lot of situations I've been through, and I've been through domestic violence situations, I've been through, some child abuse issues, dealing with mental depression and staying off of drug addiction when I was in the hospital and being a victim of gun violence, and now a person who lives with disability. I thought about all the different subjects that, my 27 years could cover. I said, I think I can do some good, right? And then I just went on a spree. I was just doing events left and right, and I realized one day when I went to work, it was a Thursday, I believe, my manager called me into her office. She says, I just want to let you know, as of 9:30 today, you've been promoted. I was like, oh. I was so lost in pursuing my purpose that I forgot about the issue with my promotion. And I took that and says, when you follow God's work, His will for your life, my favorite scripture is Matthew 6:33. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and His righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. I chased the purpose, and promotion came with it. I just left an event this morning. I told you, we talked earlier, my cousin Eton Thomas. There was Tony Massenberg there. There was the gospel rapper Bizzle there. There was what's his name? I can't remember his last name. His last name is Grant. He played in the league too. He has like 2 sons in the league now. Another one in college.
Harvey Grant, I believe.
Harvey Grant. Harvey Grant. I've done events with Kenny Lattimore. I've done events with actresses and other NBA.
Wow.
I've done events with Torrey Smith and Justin Forsett and Juan Dixon and all these other famous people. And all I'm doing is chasing my purpose. And I'm meeting these people in the process of that. I met a young lady when I was on my way back from Bahamas Monday. I was on my way to the food court, and a young lady, she stopped because we almost bumped into each other. And she said, please. I said, no, just because I'm in a wheelchair don't mean I'm not chivalrous anymore. Please, ladies first. So, you know, we had a little exchange, we laughed it off, and then she ended up sitting next to me on the plane.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked for the whole 2.5 hours back. And she's a famous, you know, hairstylist. She's showing me pictures in her phone where she's done makeup for Jennifer Hudson and Gabrielle
Wow.
and all this other stuff. She's a public speaker, but she speaks publicly about, you know, makeup and hair and all of the science behind all of that around the globe. And she's giving me tips and pointers on how to publicly speak. And I'm just sitting there like, wow, all of this from chasing my purpose. And I see a lot of people out here who are trying to become famous or become rich, and I don't care for none of that. All I'm trying to do is fulfill a promise that I made at a middle school graduation ceremony in 2014. And all of these things are being added to me on the way.
Wow. So now when you look back from everything that you've been through, and you mentioned, you know, just a lot with some childhood abuse, domestic violence, and you've just been through a slew of things that a lot of people, if they weren't strong-willed, they didn't have the determination, they weren't resilient, we can use all these words to describe it, if they didn't have those things that you have now, they probably would have fallen off. But when you look back now, and I would say, if I said, Tip, what is your purpose? Give me your purpose in a sentence. How would you? And I know that's really kind of taking such a really big purpose that you have and sort of putting it in small words, but how would you define that, like in a sentence?
In a sentence, I would define it as something my father preached to me when I was young. My father always preached to me two things when I was young. To value my academics just as much as I value my athletics, and to make life better for someone else. Use your talents and gifts to make life better for someone else. So for the first 17 years of my life, it was value academics just as much as you value athletics, right? Now, post-injury, now the athletics is no longer part of my life as it was before. I'm left with using my gifts and talents to make life better for someone else. So when I tell my story, regardless of the theme or the audience that I'm in front of, it's geared towards making life better for someone else, to prevent what happened to me from happening to other people. Because that situation was completely preventable. It had many decision points where you could have said, okay, it's not worth it. We used to decide, it continually decided to go through with it. And as a result, you know, hundreds of people were directly affected and thousands more indirectly. Because if you hear about a shooting at your nephew's school, you're gonna call your nephew, like, hey, you okay? I heard about a shooting at your school. In your mind, you don't know if your nephew's gonna answer the phone or not. You know, that type of trauma, you know, takes years to heal, and it can be manifested in many different ways. So that is why I advocate for mental health, because you can make arguments that a lot of the reasons behind some of the crime that we go through, in addition to, you know, economic disparity and low income and low employment, is of the mental trauma that we go through living in a major city.
Oh, absolutely. There's a lot of mental health issues. Now, I just want to touch on one thing. It's interestingly enough, I didn't even want to bring this up, but you kept harping on it, so I have to bring it up. Like, this is my favorite quote of all time. You can get fired from a job, but you can't get fired from your gift. So find your gift, and you will always have work.
Absolutely.
What are your thoughts on that quote?
My thoughts on that quote is a sermon I heard from Dr. William Curtis 2 Sundays ago. And he said that paraphrasing, he said that you may have an off season for your ministry. There's never an off season for your gift. And your gift has a need that needs to be met. So somebody who may have a need for your gift, that need will find you. So whenever someone stops you or, you know, approaches you in an inconvenient time, that's because that need needed the demand, needed the supply. And that's what you have to supply, you know, then it's going to find you. You know, your gift shouldn't be contingent upon, you know, the mood that you're in, or, you know, the weather condition outside or something like that. Your gift is your gift. And it's your responsibility to give that gift generously, you know, and spread it around as much as you possibly can, because there's a thin line between, you know, success and suicide. So you may have a conversation with somebody in an aisle at a marketplace, random, and the conversation can go many different ways. You may not know where that person was at that moment, because that conversation you had and that gift that you was able to give them could have literally saved their life. You would have never known it.
Wow. So for those of you out there watching, please understand what he just said, that there is a thin line between success and suicide. And Tip also mentioned how important it is that if God has granted you with a gift, that you must share it generously, because sometimes when we talk to people on the streets, they are actually sent to us from God. They need us at that given moment. And sometimes, in the course of our day-to-day travels, we brush people off, but sometimes they need that gift that we have. So whether it is a kind word, whether it's an offer of hope, whether it's an offer of encouragement, sometimes it's a handshake, sometimes it's a hug, sometimes it's words that you're going to be okay, you'll be able to get through it. So it's very important. And again, everybody has a gift. So whatever your gift is, please give it to other people. Man, I think that was so profound. One of the things that I want to go back on a little bit is you had mentioned the words urban city. So when you see a city like Baltimore that has just been unfortunately ravaged with gun violence over the last probably 10, 20 years, to be honest with you, the last few years have just, spiraled completely out of control. When you talk to young people and you share them your story, or there are a few takeaway points that, I know your story is, all of it is important, but are there a few points that you sort of harp on more than others? Mm-hmm. Because this is a city that just, gun violence is unfortunately out of control. Mm-hmm. So are there points that you just say, I really need you to get this as it relates to gun violence and things of that nature?
See, what I think when it comes to gun violence, I think that there's such a depreciation on life.
Why do you think so?
Because because of the conditions that, a lot of, people in our city and cities like ours live in, the value of life isn't, at a high priority. You see, people dying around us left and right, so they think it's normal. Mm-hmm. But the conditions that lead to that is what needs to be addressed, because it's easy to take a life. All it takes is to pull up a trigger. But if you really allow yourself the moment to take the time to realize that once I pull this trigger, there's no coming back for that person. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? It took me 8 months to get out of the hospital.
Wow.
8 months. I spent my 18th birthday in the hospital. I still got, the bullet wounds. I still feel all of that from 12 years ago. Wow. People don't understand the impact that bullets have on human flesh. And I think that was one of the great things I think about Spike Lee's latest movie, Chirac, where he showed, at the beginning of the movie, it showed the club getting shot up, and then later on in that movie, he said, let's give an update on the 2 people that were shot at the club. And you see them, one has a colostomy bag right here, and the other one has like some huge, bandage or patch or hole or something from showing his body. But you have to show people like what that looks like, and let them know that that's not okay. I think there needs to be more of a priority given towards life, because you can get another car, you can get some more clothes, but you can't get another, Rashad Bowtie Mills. You can name a Rashad Bowtie Jr., or name someone in your honor, but that's it. Mm. That's all we get. So I think that, we really need to let people know that, the effects that gun violence really, really have on people. You never forget being held at gunpoint. You forget being shot. You never forget being, pistol whipped or any other thing. You never forget that. So I think once, if we can find ways to increase the value of life again to what it used to be, I think a lot of this stuff will be turned around.
How do you think we do that? Because again, by day, I'm a mental health therapist at the Department of Juvenile Services, and I work with young men that have been charged with attempted murder and other crimes that are gun-related. But I find it extremely difficult, even on a daily basis. I always tell the guys that I'm planting seeds to get them to do exactly what you said, to appreciate life. But how do you think we can do that, especially as black men? Because to be honest with you, as black men, they're going to receive the message from us more than any other person on the face of the earth. So how do you think we can do it, and do you think it's even possible?
I always think everything is possible. Because if you think something's impossible, it takes away the possibility of it being possible. So you always believe that 50% chance that it's possible there. I think through exposure to things outside of where they live and what they see every day.
It's a great
Because,
point.
like I said before, when you see all you see is people dying around you, or a decaying environment, or an urban decayed environment, or dilapidated buildings, or boarded up homes. That's what you see. You don't know, nice neighborhoods. You don't know what an easygoing or normal life is like. So if that's all you know, then that's what you think it's supposed to be. So I think if you take some people out of, certain areas and take them, like, I'll put it like this. Early this year, on the 12th anniversary of my shooting, I funded a trip for some of the kids that I work with to get out of Baltimore, to go to DC, to the International Spy Museum. Because one, I'm an engineer, so I'm trying my best to inspire kids to, get involved in science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and spy technology is a fun, interactive way for them to be able to do that. And then through my conversations with them, a lot of them haven't even been outside of, 695.
How shocking was that to you? Because I experienced that as well. How shocking was that to you that some of our kids in the city of Baltimore, they haven't seen life outside of Baltimore?
It's not shocking to me because, some of their parents haven't seen life outside of Baltimore. You have, blocks of communities in Baltimore where that's where their whole entire family is, and they haven't gone. We know adults that's our age that haven't been to East Baltimore. So I know people who I don't know East Baltimore. Like, what do you mean? It's across town. I don't go fast. What do you mean? Like, excuse me, I don't understand that. So, I mean, it's as unbelievable as it is. It really is believable that Baltimore City kids haven't been to around. They haven't been to Prince George's County, let alone DC or Philly or any of these other surrounding cities. So that was one of the things that I think, getting them outside of Baltimore and taking them to DC to see the nation's capital, or just be in the general area of it, they got to see, life outside of what they see every day.
Wow.
And I think that will help to, okay, so there is more to life than, people getting shot or stabbed or junkies or things of that nature. So hopefully that sparks something into them in the hopes of them trying to take the necessary steps, educate themselves to be able to put themselves in a position in the future to get out of that situation.
Wow. Unfortunately, we are approaching the end of the show, but Tip, before we actually get there, I want to tell you, man, I just thank you for coming on today. You have an amazing story, and I love your energy and your spirit and your willingness to take something that happened to you and help other people. I really appreciate that. But before I let you go, I want to ask you a few questions. Each of my guests, I kind of do like a rapid fire where I'll throw out a question. I just want you to finish it. Or I'll throw out a phrase and I want you to finish it. Okay. William Tipper Thomas will be where in 5 years?
I will hopefully, prayerfully, I will be not working for my job anymore, but still doing advocacy work for STEM education. I will be fulfilling the promise that I told that young lady 2 years ago, trying to tell my story to as many people as possible. Hopefully, I will be broken more into the gun advocacy, gun violence prevention advocacy program, and broken more into the disability community advocacy program, and also doing more seminars teaching about mental health. Quite frankly, I love being an engineer, but it doesn't allow me to service the other areas I want to service because I'm at my job for 40, 50 hours a week. So that's where I hope to be in the next 5 years.
And the last question, if you had to do this all over again, if you had to relive that day all over again, knowing on the back end you could transform and save lives across the country, because you mentioned you've been all over the country, the Bahamas, Honolulu, I believe, as well, would you do it again?
Yes, not because of what I did afterwards, but because of what I did in that very moment. What I didn't go over earlier was that in the process of the shooting, there was a young lady who fell literally at my feet. And as an old football player, ingrained in us is the scoop and score drill. You pick up the football and run down the field. And I literally did that with her. And her being, 100 pounds soaking wet, it was easy with me being 6'5", 220 at the best shape of my life. And in the process of me doing that, that's when I got shot. I wasn't standing around on my own merit. I was helping someone else get shot. And it was me. If the bullets did this to me at 220, 6'5", what would they have done to her at 4'11", 5 foot, 100 pounds? You know, so despite everything that I lost, despite everything I had to go through, despite everything I had to deal with now, a life was still preserved in that moment.
I have to ask you quickly before we go. Do you still maintain a relationship with her, or?
Nope. I have no idea who she is, but that's I'm okay with that because she doesn't owe me anything. I made that decision, you know. So she doesn't owe me a lifetime of gratitude or servitude, and then I wouldn't know if she could be in this library right now or wherever. I wouldn't know. I don't know. I remember waking up the following week and seeing her in the corner of my hospital room crying and thanking me, and then maybe 2 weeks later, her pastor came back and gave me a quote that the church had made for me. But other than that, that was it.
Man, that says a lot about you as a person, and as a motivational speaker myself, man, I can't thank you enough for what you're actually doing, because I know that when you go to speaking engagements, you never really know if people are feeling your message, but trust me, I know that you know that people are feeling your message, they understand your story, and you're actually saving lives.
I'm trying my best to. I'm just trying to fulfill a promise.
So very quickly, how can people get in contact with you through social media, Facebook, Instagram, and if somebody wants you to come out and speak, how could they get in contact with you?
Sure, you can find me on Facebook at William Tipper Thomas, WILLIAM TIPPER THOMAS the third. I'm also on Instagram, Twitter, and Snapchat, and Periscope at WTIPPER Thomas. Also, if you for booking information, send an email to info@tipperfoundation.org.
Tip, thank you for coming out, man. I appreciate it greatly. Guys, thank you for tuning in. It's an amazing story. William Tipper Thomas. If you need him for an event to come out to any school function or any other function and share his incredible story and how he's actually saving lives by his motivational speeches, please get in contact with him. Thank you for tuning in to another edition of the Rashad Mills Show, courtesy of PowerPurposeRadio.com. And we are out of here.